Zoran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic Socialist. He's the
Communist, not socialist, communist.
This victory will be historic, not just because of who I am, a Muslim immigrant and a proud Democratic Socialist.
On November 4th, Zoran Mamdani won with the most radical economic agenda in New York history. But there's something about Mamdani most people don't know that should concern everyone, regardless of where you stand politically. Because when you look at his policies, his connections, and who he really is, a disturbing pattern emerges. So who is Zoran Mamdani? He's a new politician who is spearheading the democratic socialist ideas, which Bernie Sanders is a big proponent of. He just won the elections and will be New York's next mayor, and is endorsed by almost all major Democrats and over 110 Islamic organizations. He ran on one promise and one promise alone: make New York affordable for working people, tax the rich, give everyone housing, make basic services free. Mamdani's first big idea is to tax the rich. Right now, if you make over $1 million in New York, you pay about 11% in city and state taxes. Mamdani wants to add another 2% just for millionaires. He also wants to raise taxes on big corporations from about 7% to 11.5%. He says that this will bring in $10 billion in new money every year. His second big idea is to fix housing. New York is crazy expensive. A tiny apartment costs like $3,000 per month. So Mamdani wants to freeze rent for 4 years. Nobody can raise your rent. That's a big plus. Also, the city will build over 200,000 new apartments that are actually affordable. He also wants to take buildings that landlords are neglecting and just seize them, have the government take them over and fix them up. I mean, sounds pretty good if you're a renter and you live in a city where one little room costs as much as an old Toyota. And his third big idea is to generally make all kinds of stuff free. Free buses for everyone. Free childcare for every kid in New York from 6 weeks to 5 years old. That's 500,000 kids. And he wants to raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour by 2030. Right now, it's $16.50. And that's always popular with people. Now, who in their right mind would refuse to get double pay for the same work? But wait a minute, let's add up what all of this costs. Free childcare for 500,000 kids? That's about $5 billion per year. Free buses? $650 million per year. Building 200,000 apartments, about $6 billion per year for 10 years. Add it all up with his other programs, and economists say it costs $20 to $25 billion every single year. Now remember, his tax plan brings in $10 billion. I'm not the smartest, but I am pretty sure that the math doesn't add up. There's a $15 billion gap. It gets worse. Mamdani's counting on rich people paying those higher taxes, but here's the problem. Rich people can just leave. If you make millions of dollars, you can work from anywhere. You can move to places like Florida, where there's 0 state income tax. Think of it like this. Imagine your school sells lunch for $5. Then the next year they raise it to $20. What would you do? You'd bring lunch from home, right? You'll just avoid the price hike. Same thing with rich people and taxes. When taxes get too high, they just move. Forbes and Reuters studied this. They predict 10 to 25% of New York's richest 34,000 households will leave by 2028. That means the city loses $2 to $5 billion in tax money every year. So Mamdani's $10 billion turns into maybe $5 or $6 billion. Now that $15 billion gap is more like $19 or $20 billion. But even if that wasn't that big of a problem, which it is, let's talk about the genuinely stupidest policy that always hooks people. Higher minimum wage. $30 an hour sounds great if you're a worker, but think about the businesses. Your local pizza place pays workers $15 per hour now. If the law says they have to pay $30, that's double the worker cost. Most small businesses can't afford that, and they'll either raise prices and make everything more expensive anyways, or they'll just go bankrupt. Economists at Adelphi University studied this. They predict 10 to 15% of retail stores and restaurants would close. That means for every 10 stores you see on your street, 1 or 2 would shut down. And all those workers who were supposed to get $30 an hour? Now they have no job at all and no money at all. Great job, Mamdani. And the rent freeze is also idiotic. Think about it from the landlord's side. If they can't make more money, why would they fix anything? Why would they build new apartments? They won't. Columbia Business School studied this. Rent freezes reduce new housing by 5 to 10% at minimum. So the best case scenario is that a little less new apartments are being built by private investors, which will make this problem just a bit worse. Oh, and all the apartments you already have will continuously become worse and worse. And that's not even the end of it. Every year the federal government gives New York about $7 billion to help pay for stuff. But Trump has threatened to cut some of that money off. So let's get back to the math. Mamdani's plan has a $15 billion gap. Rich people leave, so you lose another $5 billion. Trump cuts federal money, you lose another $7 billion. Now the city is beyond broke. There's no way to save it without a financial collapse. And what does a financial collapse look like? They have to fire people: teachers, firefighters, police officers, sanitation workers. They have to close libraries, cut school programs, reduce trash pickup, and then they raise taxes on everyone else to try to fill the gap. So you, a regular person making $50,000 a year, guess what? Your taxes go up anyway because the city is desperate for money, and you're a loyal taxpayer, you don't have the option to move somewhere else. Oh yeah, and you get fewer and worse services. We don't only know this because of all the failed socialist experiments, but it already happened. In 1975, New York City tried very similar policies. They raised taxes on the wealthy. The wealthy left. The city ran out of money. They had to fire 60,000 city workers in 1 year. The city almost went completely bankrupt, and their policies were nowhere near as radical as Mamdani's. Now the real question is how people support this. If economic collapse is so obvious, if economists have been saying for months that the math doesn't work, if this already failed in 1975, why is Mamdani pushing these policies? Who is supporting this guy? Actually, let's look at his supporters. Mamdani is backed by two groups that normally hate each other, which are in an uneasy alliance at the moment. The first group are the Progressive Socialists. These are people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. They believe in LGBTQ rights. They support abortion rights. They want religion and government completely separate. They are the left woke. The second group are the conservative Islamic organizations. These groups believe in Sharia law, that's religious law from the Quran governing society. They have traditional conservative views on family, gender, and sexuality. They oppose gay marriage, oppose abortion, oppose religious freedom, and want Islam to have a bigger role in everyone's lives. And not only that, it is written in the Quran that if anyone opposes what Allah has commanded as law, they deserve the death penalty. These two groups disagree on almost everything. It's as if far left and far right people both supported the same politician. It doesn't make sense, but nonetheless, 110 Islamic organizations endorsed Mamdani. A poll by CARE found that 97% of Muslim voters supported him. But his platform is the most progressive platform in New York City's history. How does that work? We saw the avid support from Muslims for Mamdani when he posted a photo from a mosque in Brooklyn called Masjid at-Taqwa with an imam named Siraj Wahhaj in October before he was elected. Mamdani called him a pillar of the community who's been there for 50 years. Mamdani didn't tell you that Siraj Wahhaj was named by federal prosecutors as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. That's the terrorist attack that killed 6 people and injured over 1,000. Wahhaj testified as a character witness for Omar Abdel Rahman. That's the blind sheikh who planned the attack. In 1992, Wahhaj gave speeches calling for jihad against New York. He's called the FBI terrorists. He's made public statements calling homosexuality a disease, and he donated $1,000 to a political group supporting Mamdani. Speaking of donations, according to reports from the New York Post and an organization called White Collar Fraud, George Soros's foundations funneled between $37 and $41 million through nonprofit groups that supported Mamdani. So here's the question nobody can answer. Is Mamdani a radical Muslim that poses as a democratic socialist, or is he a democratic socialist posing as a Muslim? He can't actually believe in both things. He's either lying to the progressive voters, or he's lying to the conservative Islamic groups. But someone is definitely getting fooled. Honestly, New York's future policies are so inept, and the divide between Mamdani's supporters so wide, that it will actually be very interesting to watch the city that never sleeps take its last breath.
Click here, click here, click here.